And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
And he said, there's three types of people. There's sheep, there's wolves, and there's sheepdogs.
Yeah, which is an incredibly specific black and white philosophy, Mike.
Alright, just a point of order. Black and white is a binary system. There's three options.
Good evening and welcome to Is It a Bicycle, Season 8, Episode 4, the original and bestest ever TV and movie podcast. My name is Stephen Wrigley and I'll be your host for this evening. Beside me is a man who this week asked, anyone know how to get red wine stain off a baby? It's Mike McDonough. Also beside me is the lady who reckons you can tell how much a woman hates her husband by how short she cuts her hair. It's Shona, I Love Canada, O'Flaherty. Live from Vegas, we have a man who says he used to have superpowers, but the psychiatrist took them away. Sean. I love cans, Leonard. And in the red corner, it's our cuddly killer, a man who this week discovered that you can't call them love handles if nobody loves you. It's Mark, superhero Leonard. This week we hope to discuss some movies in the shape of WildCard and American Sniper, and some TV in the form of The Man in the High Castle. We'll also have some news and some previews in Coming to a Bicycle near you. So how's everyone?
I'm pretty good, Steve. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thanks very much. So you've been busy this week. What have you seen that's not on the list?
I don't think I've seen anything that's not on the list this week, actually. Let me see. No.
Okay, I'll move on to Shona.
Almost nothing.
We'll just sit here in dead air while you think over what you've watched.
Move on to Shona, who has a sick list.
Yeah.
She's got Shona's flu list.
Yeah, I was sick last week, so I got to watch the shit out of everything.
Oh, really, yeah?
I'll quickly recap, because I'm not going to give reviews for all of them. I got to see Agent Carter. I did my homework. Found it boring. No interest. Thank you. Goodbye.
Really?
Nope.
Oh.
I got to
Wait. You can't move on. What did you think about a representation of feminism?
That's what I found boring. That's what I found boring, because I found that women were still there as objects to be like, oh, look at how sexist it is, but she's different. And I found that really, I found that almost as bad as kind of like when you ignore it, 'cause it wasn't like an actual...
Steve, I would like the record to state that I was right.
What?
That's more or less what I said.
It was almost patronizing feminism. Was that?
Patronizing feminism. That's our new term here. Yeah. It was patronizing feminism. So, and I think that they relied very heavily on it, and that made the episode quite boring. I didn't find really much there that was interesting.
It was really in your face, that whole thing.
Yeah, but it was in your face. Like, I don't know what the hook was supposed to be. Like, that's empowering women. It's just like, women are there to either be objectified in terms of violence to show how amazing Agent Carter is, or Agent Carter is standing there listening to a bunch of sexism being like, look at how amazing she is. People think she's useless.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, I hated the 1940s as well.
And I also saw Ascension.
Oh, yeah.
So I saw the first episode. I've recorded the other two episodes. I think its accessibility here is what makes it watchable. I don't know if I'd seek it out again, but I've got them recorded, so when there's nothing on TV one day, I'll put on the other episodes.
Yeah, cool.
I thought it was good. I thought the twist was good. I didn't find the characters quite as dull as you guys did, but there was something there, but it wasn't a lot. But I'll see the other two because I've got them recorded. I thought that the twist was slightly predictable.
Yeah.
Did you see that coming?
No, I wasn't smart enough. Yep.
And this week on Is It a Bicycle? Steve has low self-esteem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I got to see Dallas Buyers Club finally, which was amazing. It wasn't the movie that I thought it was, and it was just incredible. It was so
I knew you'd
good.
like it. I knew you'd like it.
But you love AIDS movies.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I knew you'd love it.
I didn't know that it was going to become the movie was going to be focused so much on kind of the
AIDS.
rights and the plight of AIDS sufferers, and their access to medication.
Yeah.
So I thought it was amazing. And Matthew McConaughey, Jared Leto, even knowing that he starred in the film, it took me until at least halfway through the film to be like, no,
that's him.
that is him.
Yeah.
Is that him? I know that. No, that isn't. Is it him?
Yeah.
So yeah, they were both incredible. I don't know who I would give the leg up there on acting.
Out of 10.
Oh my God, 9? I think 9.
Yeah. See, I think had you seen it for the bike
yeah,
race,
it would have been on my list.
Higher.
It would have been on my list, I think.
Yeah.
So I really, really enjoyed that. And that was a recommendation from Is It a Bicycle? If you follow them on Twitter, I didn't know what to watch, and they told me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Is It a Bicycle? Of course, at the time, my conundrum was, should I watch Dallas Buyers Club or Locke? But I was 6, so it wasn't really an either-or situation. I watched both. So Locke I liked more than I thought it would. Man being stuck in a car turns out to be pretty interesting. I think the acting was really good. The character was likable, which I think is obviously what the film hinged on. So I liked it much more than I thought that
So if you like that, you'll probably like the one about the man stuck in a phone booth. And there's one about a man that's stuck in
127 hours.
Yeah, there's one man stuck on a ledge as well.
Men stuck in various locations. It's a new genre.
It was a theme there for a while. Yeah.
So let's see, off the top of my... Oh, and I also got to see a documentary, 20 Feet from Stardom. It won Best Documentary a few years ago at the Oscars, about background singers for famous singers and getting to hear about their careers and who they tour with and what they do and what they contribute to the music.
Great name for it.
It's amazing. It's on Netflix right now and I really, really recommend it. It was really good and not... I think documentaries about pseudo-famous people can get really stupid. I know we reviewed a trailer recently.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
It looks stupid.
Yeah.
But this is actually really good, so I recommend it.
Mm.
So yeah, some pretty good sick
Cool.
bad viewing.
Right. What else did we see? I watched... this is something I want to talk about, Storyland. It's Storyland on RTE is a number of shorts. Sean, have you seen this by any chance? Have you heard
I think
of it?
is Storyland a process for shorts to become series?
Or something?
So they've done it a number of times. I don't know who the winners are, but they have done it a few times.
It's a bit
people
like...
vote on it. Yeah. What did you think?
It's a bit like Amazon is doing with their pilots at the moment. But anyway, I watched one called Far. And it's set in Northern Ireland. It's a detective series, and the episode I saw was only 6 minutes long. But from that 6 minutes, I already know I want to see a lot more of this. The acting is great, the script is great, and there's only I think 2 or 3 scenes in it, but it's really good. I'm intrigued already.
Do they have the budget, Steve, to make it look like a proper cop show?
You can see it's on a budget, but that's what I thought was so great was that they were able to do so much with what is obviously so little, so they literally have 2 cops on a stakeout, and so they're like in front of black bin bags on a wall, and then they have like one room in a pub that they use for the guys that they're staking out, that kind of way. And so that's the only 2 locations. So yeah, it's really, really good. I would highly recommend giving at least the first episode a go. So yeah.
That reminds me, talking about staking out from pubs next door, I forgot the most important in my viewing. I've become a binge watcher of Homeland.
Oh, really?
It's such a good show.
Oh, you hadn't seen it?
I've never seen it, and it was after the Vikings.
Oh, yeah, we were talking
actually,
about this. Yeah.
Where I was fighting my corner for Kerry Russell in The Americans, and someone asked me if it was kind of as gritty as Homeland, and maybe it wasn't. And as soon as the comparison was made between The Americans and Homeland, I was in, and I committed to finishing watching the pilot that I'd started a few months ago.
Right.
And I finished season 2 today, and I'm just binge watching the crap out of that show. I'm having dreams about terrorists.
Oh, really? Yeah. Very good.
Speaking of dreams, actually, I had the weirdest dream during the week. I dreamt that I was in a hotel. I don't know why. I was in a hotel, and Arnie was there selling jewelry.
As in Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger was there selling jewelry.
Okay, as you do.
And he was all like, would you like to see some rings? And I was there like, do you just do this because you love jewelry? It's like, I know you don't need the money.
It's a passion hobby.
It was weird. It was a bit weird.
That's strange. Did you buy any jewelry?
I think so. I'm not 100%. It gets fuzzy after that.
Big rocks. Yeah. What was I going to say? The series I wanted to tell you about, Jonah, is Engrenage, which I'm a big fan of. Spiral.
Ignore him. Jonah, ignore him.
Yeah.
Subtitles.
Yeah, it's French. But
it sounds French. I'm intrigued.
It is French, and it's back for a 5th season.
Okay.
Yeah, 5th season, and I'm straight into it already. It's been shown on BBC 4, yeah, it's available, let's say.
What kind of genre is it?
It is crime drama, pretty much. There's a lot, see in France with their system, there's a lot to do with the courts and the judges and the prosecutors and their interactions with the cops, with ongoing
like
investigation. Not too far removed,
okay.
yeah.
And what's it called?
Engrenage. Spiral, whichever. Yeah.
It's called both.
Yeah. So, well, it depends where you are, what it's called. So,
Really?
yeah.
It has two French titles.
Two French titles.
Spiral is
I'll hook
easier
you
to
up.
remember.
Yeah, it's really good.
Hook
Yeah,
me
yeah.
up, man. You know where the good stuff is.
And you'll probably recognize some of the people that are in it, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Romain Duris, by any chance?
Audrey Fleurot,
Okay.
and other names escape me.
And other such French people.
So
When I'm done binge watching Homeland, I'll hit you up.
yeah, do, because I really, when I discovered this, I went straight through 3 seasons really quickly.
okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's great. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
Thanks for turning up. So, Mike, you saw Leviathan this week.
I did.
What you reckon?
It's a nasty little Russian movie, isn't it?
Yeah, tell us about it. What's it about?
It's a kind of an everyman figure called Kolya, who is living in the very far north of Russia on the coast of the Barents Sea. And he has a house which is the subject of some desire by a powerful local honcho mayor type fella. And he's doing anything he can to get his hands on that house for reasons we don't really find out. But anyway, he engages some help from an old army buddy who is now a hotshot Moscow lawyer to come in and stand up for the small man against the big powers.
Yeah, because this dirtbag mayor, the gangster guy, he has like the cops and the courts in his pocket. Yeah. So, but he's I don't know if he's trying to get a saving grace from the church or what, but I think that's why he's trying to acquire he's trying to acquire the land for the church, it seems, you know. So, this starting out, I didn't I didn't know what to expect, actually, because I didn't read a lot about it. I just saw that it was nominated for International Oscar. But this is gorgeous looking movie.
Yeah.
It's powerful and it's
well, it's gorgeous.
long.
The right word. It looks like Mordor.
You're right, actually. Yeah.
It's such a godforsaken looking corner of the world. Jesus.
There's a couple of things that struck me. It was like I have no Russian whatsoever, and good God, they get through unbelievable amounts of vodka.
It's epic, isn't it?
It's unreal. It's unreal.
I felt so inadequate watching that movie.
like literally, there's 4 friends. They get a bottle of vodka and they pour a measure each, and the bottle is empty.
Jesus.
Yeah, and then they just go cheers and down it all, and then
Oh my God.
and what they're doing is they're out for picnic shooting, right? With their kids and stuff, you know. And so if you hit the target, you take 1 drink, and if you miss, you take 3. You know, so it's just nuts the amount. But anyway, this is really good. It's a real small man against the system, Russian sort of twisted system, it seems, type story, and I love the setting. It's just great, even from the it's not a picture of the Pope on the wall. It's Putin. You know, looking down on everyone, you know, that kind of thing.
But there seems to be a very strong message that the system has always been against the little man right through history.
Yeah.
And like with the church and state being tied as one and going against the little guy, it's almost like the Russian Revolution never happened. It's just you're back to Tsarist times.
It's very mafia-like, isn't it?
It is, yeah. One thing that I thought captured it perfectly was on that shooting trip.
Yeah.
They run out of targets, and one of the boys brings out a series of portraits of all the presidents going back to Lenin. And they use them for targets instead. And it just kind of, puts in perspective what the average Russian thinks of his leadership down through the decades.
That was quite funny, actually.
But there's just layers and layers and layers in this story.
There's actually 3 major stories really in it. Because the first story that we're watching, I was quite surprised when it seemed to finish. I was like, oh, yeah, but there's an hour left, you know. What's going to happen now? But anyway, they integrated quite well. I really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed it.
It's a real character piece. Like,
it is,
like I was giving out last week about the lack of characters in Whiplash. Whereas in this, it has, pretty well 4 or 5 serious characters that go through a lot of changes. And have, their own story arcs. So it's a busy movie. Keeps you watching. Probably not great for the Russian tourist industry.
No, it's not. And actually, the basis isn't on Leviathan by Hobbes, is it? It's by
No,
it's the book of
Job.
Job. Yeah,
in the
yeah.
Bible. So if you're familiar with the Book of Job, he gets a bit of a rough time from God. And
Yeah, a lot of imagery. Oh, there was actually a quote from it too, wasn't there?
there was.
You don't catch the sea monster with a hook.
That's right. Yeah, or lashed on his tongue or something.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly,
Yeah,
with a rope. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So what would you give this?
I enjoyed it. I definitely wouldn't recommend it to Mark.
No.
But I'd give it a 7.
Yeah.
Just because the subtitles, Mike, or it's not my kind of film?
It's largely because of the subtitles. I think if it was in English, you'd probably quite enjoy it.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
But if it's any good, they'll remake it.
Yeah.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah.
Oh, it's true.
If it will make them money, they'll remake it. It doesn't have to be good at all.
I'd agree with you on the 7, actually, yeah.
Yeah. I think on just on the international Oscar theme, I think this one is a lot stronger than Ida.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't say. I could have told you that, never having seen Leviathan.
Yeah. We've a couple more to get through, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
What's this we face?
Those that are interested, let's say. Speaking of remakes, do you remember that series we watched? It was a BBC series, I think, a couple of seasons ago. It was called Mad Dogs. Do you remember that? It was about 4 friends going to the Mediterranean to the really rich friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did 2 or 3 seasons of that, didn't they?
I can't remember how many seasons. There's definitely a second, yeah. So that has been made by the Americans in the US, and it's also called Mad Dogs.
Oh, I bet everyone is better looking.
Well, they've actually they've recycled a couple of the actors, I believe.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So I haven't seen any of it yet, but yeah. Okay.
I can't believe I've been sitting here for 5 minutes with Shona's hat on and nobody's mentioned it.
So
Well,
I didn't
I
see.
noticed it right away. Like I'm looking right
I just
at
thought you were cold.
I noticed in the monitor there that your head looked pointy, but I thought there was something behind you.
Mike, The Quiet Ones, is that worth mentioning? You saw this?
Yeah,
this week.
it's one of the new Hammer horrors. Well, 2012. Maybe I just saw it on DVD.
Yeah.
It's not great, to be honest.
Really?
It's based in the 70s. This young one who is kind of possessed.
Kind of.
Yeah. Well, this.
Can you be kind of possessed? Is that something that happens like in a gradient?
Well, there's this Oxford professor and some of his research students don't believe in possession. So they think it's some kind of manifestation of psychic powers that she has. When she makes things spin and whatever and blow up. And, so they take her off to a secure location and they do all kinds of experiments and, lo and behold, they all go wrong and everybody dies horribly.
Feel good movie of the year.
Yeah. It's fairly standard horror stuff. Nothing to write home about.
Okay. So next up we'll have some news. Sean, do you want to lead with some news?
So, the news this week is pretty much just based around me toying with your guys' emotions.
Yeah.
So to start off, to the chagrin of particularly Mark, Adam Sandler has a 4-picture deal with Netflix, of all places.
I saw that.
Are you sure? Are you sure it's only 4?
Well, it's a 4-picture deal. Doesn't mean he'll only make that many for them.
No, I thought
More
there was.
the pity.
I thought it was a 6-picture deal.
Scurries home, cancels Netflix subscription.
Yeah.
I see how you're confused, Steve. It's a 4-picture deal, but they believe the first movie will be called The Ridiculous Six, which
that's
stars a bunch of people that we don't really care about, but they're Adam Sandler's friends and they have jobs now. So in a way, that's good.
He's creating
ones to pick-
employment.
It's true. The
bringing the
thing we
hood
can
with
pick out of that would be Vanilla Ice is apparently going to be in The Ridiculous Six. Chris Parnell, who we like, check out my interview with him from last year's Comic-Con. And, of course, Terry Crews, who can do no wrong in my eyes.
I like Terry Crews as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's going to be coming out any time now. But because I just made Mark unhappy, I feel like I should probably make it up to him. The SAG Awards just happened, and hopefully this will please Shona as well. Outstanding performance by a male actor in a television movie or miniseries went to Mark Ruffalo for The Normal Heart.
I saw that. Yay.
AKA.
Not his best film, but he is the best guy.
And in a classic Mark Ruffalo move, and thank God for social media, he was asleep after a long day's work, so his kids went into his room and woke him up and said, "Dad, do you want to know more?"
He worked so hard.
He took a selfie from bed going, "Thanks, this movie's important." And then he tweeted out a list of the people that, he wanted to thank, which is what they should always do for every award show fucking ever. We don't want to hear the names of people important to you. We want you to give a speech that makes us cry and or laugh, and then get the fuck off the stage. So anyway, I'm just going to advocate for that. The interesting thing about the SAG Awards is that they have ensemble awards as well. Yeah. For example, Birdman won Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture. On television, in drama, the ensemble winners were Downton Abbey's cast, and for comedy, it was Orange is the New Black.
That is interesting. Are they the only awards show that do that?
I don't think they're the only one, but they're the biggest one that has ensemble ones. Like, none of the other biggies, I think, have them, except the Emmys do, I believe. I think the Emmys have it for the same categories, drama and because Modern Family have like 9 Emmys from that, I'm pretty sure. So I think that they do that.
I think Mike would have nominated Piranha 3DD.
Probably.
Yeah.
Had anybody asked me?
Yeah.
Before we get stuck in that cesspool, let's move on to some news for Shona. And me, I was very excited when I saw about this. Have you heard that they have not only cast the new Ghostbusters, but they have the approval of almost everyone important, including Bill Murray?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was exciting. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to guess on Twitter, between me and Is It a Bicycle, who the cast might be. And I think we guessed two of the 4, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did, yeah.
Well, coming from Paul Feig, the director of Bridesmaids, it is no surprise that Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig will be 2 of the cast. And rounding it out are Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon from Saturday Night Live. So essentially they went, "Could we have some funny women, please?" And then they went, "Yes, here are some funny women." So all we know is that this one has more traction than any other of the aborted Ghostbusters reboots / prequels, sequels that we've seen before. And then finally, to make me a little bit sad, Joss Whedon has reported that he won't be doing more Marvel movie directing after Avengers 2 Age of Ultron. Because essentially he hasn't actually owned any of the stories that he's been working on for a long time. And he'd like to do that, something that's just his own. He may move on to being in an advisory role in some capacity, which would probably be a good call. I mean, the man did outright Toy Story, so that's just, So thank you.
All right, so it's not that he's just developed some artistic integrity then, or...
No, I mean, he likes superheroes. I think it's more that he's like, I can't look at these handsome people anymore. I can't fucking do it. So that's all the news that I found this week.
I believe he was quoted as saying there should be more female superheroes this week.
Well, in fact, he said the reason there aren't female-led superhero movies is because of sexism. Which, you don't have to be that smart to know that, but to say it, you might need to be the guy directing one of the most financially successful movies of all time. I don't know. I mean, Joss Whedon wanted to direct the Wonder Woman movie a long time ago, but DC make historically bad decisions with their films. And there you go.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's start with first for movies, which is WildCard. Sean, do you want to tell us about WildCard?
Sure thing. WildCard stars Jason Statham as Nick Wilde on his 5,000th day in Las Vegas. He is a chaperone with a particular set of skills. And after an ex-lover and friend of his is sexually attacked, he comes to her aid. And also, he's got an employment from Michael Angarano, playing a character who just really wants to do some gambling, and he'd like a big tough guy to follow him around. So the story and those two plots move from there.
Did we see this?
Oh.
Yes, we did.
And what did you think?
Snooze.
Not for you, then, no?
I'm not even going to make a snoozing sound. I'm just going to say the word.
You weren't excited by this? No?
No,
Are you a Jason Statham fan?
No. I mean,
okay.
the man, I don't know. I'm sure he's lovely and his mother loves him. The movies he does, are they not
You
all
leave
the same
his mother out of this.
Sorry, Jason's mom.
Did you not have a poster of his up on the sitting room wall during the bike?
Oh, of course. Yeah, well, I could personally worship him, but his
That was him in
career...
his Speedos from his diving days.
Shut up, you guys. No, but every movie he does, is it like the same movie more or less? I feel like it is.
No, sometimes he's an Audi and sometimes he's a BMW.
Yeah, not quite.
Yeah. Of course, I have to point out the role of women in the movie. Now, I don't set out to watch every movie to be like, are women portrayed well in this film?
Are they being represented fairly in this movie?
I honestly, I swear to God, I don't sit down and with all my feminist hat on, explicitly taking notes,
Yeah,
but it stands out to me.
Yeah.
That's a bit like Mike saying he doesn't watch films for nudity.
Fair point.
Touche, Mark.
Shona, I actually made a list of the speaking female roles in the movie. Shall I rally those out?
Please, I bet it'll be interesting.
There's a maid. There is a blackjack dealer. There is a waitress. There is the woman our main character is paid to con, and our main character's former lover, whose rape propels the story into motion.
Yes.
Wow.
And it was that last character that really bothered me, because I really hate it when violence against women is brought into a film just to be the object of a man's motivation to do something. And it was quite gruesome when she was describing what happened, and I think I just have issues with rape or violence of any kind against women being used in that way. So I kind of didn't like the film right away, but I found it really boring in general. I mean, you just walk into a room, there's going to be a fight of some kind. I didn't like how the fight scenes went really...
Mark's face.
Mark seems aghast at that statement. Why can't they all just get along, you guys?
I've already made that face 4 times, but you just now noticed it.
They used men to as leverage as well for a man to do stuff as well.
Do they?
Yeah.
Doesn't stand out to me.
No, it didn't quite stand out. No.
I noticed the slow-mo effect when he's fighting people. It looks really gory. You see noses being broken in slow-mo. Kind of reminded me of that Sherlock Holmes film. When Robert Downey Jr. they used that mechanism as well.
It's like, can you see this? Can you get a good, clear picture in your head now?
Yeah, that was just that was a bit too much. I mean, as someone who doesn't really love watching violence in films, that was uncomfortable for me. So I know I'm not really the target audience, but I didn't really like it that much.
Okay, someone who is target audience. Mark.
Speaking as the target audience for this film, I like Jason Statham, I agree with you, Shona, that of late his films have all had a certain speed. And that's a transporter joke. But it seems like they think that the only films that he can sell in the States are the type of action film that this one is. I think Jason is actually quite a decent character actor. He doesn't get a lot of scope to do it in this film. And I think my biggest problem with the film, aside from the motivation, because I thought that the character that propels the story, as Sean put it, I didn't think she was very well written at all. I didn't find her reaction to it all believable. But that aside, my main problem was that it was very disjointed, and I didn't think it was sure what kind of film it was going to be. And Jason Statham's character's arc is just bananas. It's not an arc. It's like a rebounding. It's like a racquetball ball in a racquetball court that bounces around a lot randomly.
Like a zigzag.
There you go, Sean. It's a zigzag. But that being said, I didn't hate it. Mainly because when he goes into a room, there's a fair chance that some slow-mo fighting is coming up. And another thing that I like about Jason Statham, first probably given front and center in Transporter, at least when I saw it, was that his fighting technique is really good. When he throws sidekicks, his hip goes all the way in, and you just don't see that nowadays. And it tends to be, like you can see that he has a traditional background. He's out of a karate or taekwondo camp or something like that, and he's kept that shape. And ever since Batman Begins, all of fighting in movies has to look like the Casey fighting method all of a sudden, because that's the only effective fighting system. Case in point being all of the Taken's. Whereas he still has his own style of fighting, which I appreciate and I always enjoy watching it. So not the highest concept film in the world, nothing really that surprising, bit of a disjointed character development for Statham. But you know what? I actually enjoyed it. My good wife, on the other hand, did fall asleep pretty early and permanently until the film was over. And she may have woken up at one stage and gone, "What's going on now?" and then go back to sleep again. So it's not for everybody, but I certainly enjoyed it.
Sean.
So, Mark, I'm going to latch on to your point there about it being kind of disjointed. The thing is, this movie has an A plot and a B plot. But instead of having an A plot that is the central core of the movie and a B plot that happens around that, it kind of just goes, we're going to do one plot, and we're going to finish with that.
Yeah.
And we're just going to finish the movie with a different thing. So, in that sense, it is true. Now, this is based on a novel by William Goldman. William Goldman also wrote the screenplay for this film. William Goldman is a 2-time Oscar winner for screenplays for the films Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Best Adapted Screenplay for All the President's Men in 1976. Now, this movie, I don't think... What I'm trying to wonder, because I haven't seen those two movies, I have to ask you guys... is this as good as those? Is the script similar in any way?
As Butch Cassidy and
Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, yeah. Does it feel like a Western in that sense?
No, it doesn't really.
Because this is what I'm wondering. Were films just worse back when you guys were, younger?
They were less mature, let's say, I guess, in the writing. Yeah. So, I mean, since
broad
76,
strokes.
what has he had? 39 years of practice? Or
That's true. Although this is also the guy who wrote both the book and the screenplay for The Princess Bride. So maybe I came into this movie expecting a little bit more. But here's the thing. There's not as much fighting, Shona, as you make it seem. Like, in a Jason Statham movie of the kind that I think you're describing, there would have been 7 fights, maybe? Like maybe 7 to 15 fights. Or at least longer chunks of the movie would have been devoted to that. Whereas in this, it takes a surprisingly long time before fighting actually breaks out. Which I was kind of surprised by, but ended up not minding, because the cinematography in this, I think, is pretty good in that they have this technique for moving along the scenes where they start showing you glimpses of the next location scenes are going to take place while the one you're watching is ending. Which I don't know. I think it was a good pacing technique, and the film would have dragged, or maybe, depending on your guys' opinions, dragged more without that. I loved the fights. I thought the punch-in was very good. When he threw a thing, and it was slow motion, I was like, yes, I love when people throw things. They don't do that anymore. As for it being...
There was only 3, wasn't there?
Based on... Say again?
There was only 3 fights, wasn't there?
There's not many.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You would expect more if you build this as an action.
What I think I probably mean when I talk about... because I'm so unaccustomed to it, and it's just so not my thing... Maybe I mean, like, violent content. You know, her talking about her rape, I count that as violent content. Her kind of threatening the guy with cutting his balls off or whatever, I count that as violent content. So even when things kind of get tense with the promise of violence or a recollection, that all feels violent to me even though nothing is happening. So maybe it felt more violent than it was.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that the way that they handled the rape, there's almost nothing shown of it. Like, it was a very interesting way they went about it. You know, trying to make, and maybe it was worse because they're trying to imagine it in your head or worry that you will or
because
whatever.
I'd never heard of this movie. Whenever a movie comes up I don't know anything about on our watch list, I watch the trailer first, and the trailer actually shows more than the film does. So maybe they had made a decision after they cut the trailer to make the film, I don't know, a different
after a bit of consultation.
way. But I knew from watching the trailer that there was a violent rape, and I just didn't like that. So even, maybe they didn't show it, quite as much. I still found there was a description that she mentioned about, a gun in allusion to her rape, and I just, still very violent even though it was just a description.
I went to check out what the book was like after I interviewed Dominic Garcia Laredo, which you can find on our website as well. Go check out that interview that I did with her, and it might even be in this very episode as well. But I went and looked at the book to see how different it was. Holy shit! There are a lot more characters, including a revelation Michael Angarano's character, very, very different in terms of gender and operations that person has had with regards to their gender. Like, they left some shit out. I don't know, I feel like I kind of agree with you guys, but I mean, or maybe with Mark most of all, because I still ended up liking it, even though it's a bit all over the place.
Yeah. I kind of went into this expecting a Jason Statham film, and I think that's what I got. On the scale of Jason Statham films, it's probably a 7. But that's on the scale of Jason Statham films.
But how much of a Jason Statham film do you think it was?
Yeah. I mean, you knew you're going in. He's the kind of a little bit rough around the edges, but sort of has a background that is a little bit mysterious. But you know that he's well trained. He may have been the transporter in a previous life and given that up and moved to Vegas. Nearly. Not quite exactly the same character, but you kind of know what you were going to get.
I feel like the opening of the film tries to make a clear point that this isn't like other Jason Statham movies.
I know.
Given that we you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He's literally in a bar being not Jason Statham.
Yeah.
And then he goes and is kind of a bully, and then some very not Jason Statham things happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like it was going, don't expect that.
Yeah. But
I don't know.
But he could have done that for a buddy in a previous movie, that kind of way.
Now
No.
I feel like you're creating things that never happened in Jason Statham movies.
No, I just think it would be fitting to that typical character that he plays, is what I mean. I don't mean that something similar has happened before, but it wouldn't surprise me,
Yeah, fair enough. You don't think it's out of step with the Jason Statham film.
No.
But I think the point Sean might have been making was that they threw that in at the start to do some misdirection, that this was a typical Jason Statham film.
Yeah. But I think that even further on in the movie, I think it was more compounded that this was a Jason Statham movie just by his character.
I wouldn't agree with that now.
No.
They tried to, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, but they tried to give him a fuller character than he has in most of those others. Like in his other films, he is essentially the thing you've just described, which is, I have 3 rules about how I carry a package for you.
Yeah.
Ex-military, I'm going to beat the shit out of people if something's wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas they tried to, no, I'm not saying they succeeded, because I had my own issues with the development in the movie, but they tried to paint him as someone who was, not in a very good place. A lot of pathos, it seems, in there. I thought Jason carried that off pretty well. And he's a kind of one of the types of people I imagine you would meet in Vegas who say they want to leave, really don't, and probably never will. And I didn't think that's not a typical Statham character, I thought.
For some actual background on Vegas people, I could walk to the bar that is 15 steps away and find 7 people at the machines right now at 2 o'clock in the day who will be there for a number of hours. They will be back there every day until they are dead. Yeah. Like, there are a lot of people, and then you throw in someone who actually has skills to make money to gamble away. Yeah. That happened. My friend Zach gambled $200 yesterday in the space of 10 minutes. He doesn't have $200.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
One thing that I think I agree with Mark that they were trying to build a fuller character, perhaps at the expense of other characters. But one thing I did really like is there's a sequence where he gambles, and they're trying to do a gambling sequence and make it tense and interesting and exciting is tough. I thought they did a good job. And there's one moment in the film where I went, he hasn't done that before. And I wasn't saying he hasn't done that before in the film. I was saying, I haven't fucking seen this genuinely from him in any movie except maybe The Expendables, which doesn't matter because there's no emotion involved ever. But he smiled. And when Jason Statham smiles and it looks genuine, I go, holy shit, what's going on over there? That doesn't happen. He's not even headbutting anybody. So that was actually a weirdly nice moment. I did. So yeah, I think it was just an attempt to make a movie with Jason Statham and build him a character more than they usually do. Whether or not it was successful is probably going to come down to our opinions in the rating.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It was a completely typical Jason Statham movie, all right. Mike, you missed a trick on this because Sofia Vergara's in it. Yeah. I knew it. You would have given it a 10 straight away. Yeah. Anyway, do we have more to talk about on this, or do we want to mark it, or?
Well, I can let you guys know if an in-depth discussion of the film's misogyny ends up in a local Vegas newspaper next week. Well, I'll let you know if that happens.
Oh, nice.
That might have been by somebody on the podcast. I'll let you know.
Very good. Very good. So, Sean, yeah, give us a mark.
I liked this more than I liked an average movie, but I didn't think it was great. So I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay. Shona?
I'll give it a 4. It's not my thing. What I will say, though, is that I agree with one of Mark's comments about Jason Statham as an actor, and I think I'd like to see him in a different type of role. Like maybe follow a Dwayne Johnson kind of thing. See him play the straight man in a comedy or something. I think that would be interesting. But while he's still doing these kind of action things, not my deal.
Luckily, you can see him in the upcoming Spy with Melissa McCarthy, where he does exactly what you're talking about.
Awesome. See, I'd be interested in that. I'll watch.
Or you could go back and watch a couple of his greats, like Bank Job or Snatch.
Yeah, Snatch is not my thing. I haven't seen.
Snatch is one of the greatest films ever made.
We differ on so much, Mark.
On some levels, we're very different people, Sean. But I think you should watch The Bank Job. He does no fighting in it whatsoever. He's not a fighty character.
Is he still just like a grumpy guy who walks around being British and grumpy?
No, he's the same voice, but he plays like it's character acting rather than an action movie, you know. And he's really good in it, I thought.
You know, he's going to come out with a romantic lead role sometime, and you're just going to swoon. You say, Jason, he's so talented.
Oh, I wish you would wear one of Colin Firth's suits.
It'll be 2016's McConaughey. Yeah.
He'd be too bulky in a suit, Mark. No. Moving on.
It's tailored right.
All right, Mark, go. Mark the movie.
Give us a mark. Mark.
It's a 6 for me. I agree with Sean. To me, it's an above average film. It's not high cinema or anything like that, but I did really enjoy it, so I think 6 is fair.
Yeah, I think it's a solid 5 for me because it is an average movie in the grand scheme of things. Like I said, it's a 7 on the Statham scale, but I enjoyed it. It's not that I didn't enjoy it; I just think it's average. So 5. So next up, let's talk about the first of our TV, which is The Man in the High Castle. Did you put this on the list? Who put this on the list?
Oh, I think I did.
You did. Okay,
Yeah,
go for it.
yeah. This one on the list.
Amazon pilot.
Yeah, this is a new Amazon Prime pilot. I think we've done a couple of these before, but this one seems to be getting a lot of traction on the internet because it's a Philip K. Dick novel adaptation, and people tend to pay attention to anything related to his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just remember I mentioned Mad Dogs earlier.
Uh-huh.
That's also an Amazon pilot.
Ah,
Yeah. That's
there you go.
Yeah.
Seems Amazon's the place to go these days, huh? So basically this is an alternate history, kind of an effort. So the Allies lost World War II and Germany took over the eastern United States. Japan got the west. The dividing line is the Rocky Mountains, and there's a neutral zone in the Rocky Mountains. And it's following, obviously with the division of the systems, they need 2 characters. So you have somebody from the German side, somebody from the Japanese side, and we're set up to wonder if anybody's going to resist the domination that America's future holds.
Okay, what do you think?
I kind of liked it. It didn't look like they'd spent a whole lot of money on it. But I put that to one side, and I did enjoy the whole idea of it. Mm-hmm. I found it very interesting, the portrayal of the generation gap between the people who had resisted and the people who had been brought up in the system and were now happy Nazis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'd say particularly for an American audience that would be quite disturbing.
Quite jarring to watch, I think.
Yeah, seeing Americans in Nazi uniforms happy about it, you know. Probably not quite as much of an impact this side of the water. But yeah, it's I mean, it's only a pilot, but they set up some characters and they got a little bit of a hook going. So fair enough. Good effort.
Pretty good hook, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think of this, Shona?
I thought it was interesting. I think I've read Man in the High Castle. I remember studying Philip K. Dick. I was lucky enough to get to take a science fiction literature course in university. And I read some of his other stuff. And I have this book. I don't remember if I read it because the plot didn't seem familiar to me. That's kind of neither here nor there, because me saying I don't remember if I know this book is kind of useless for the review of the pilot. it was an interesting premise. It kind of makes it clear right away what Mike was saying, that, Nazis have won the war, what if? And we start there. So you're kind of right off seeing, okay, this is a dystopian future type of film. It was interesting, I think, for the reasons that you mentioned in terms of seeing the generational gaps. Some people, just the ease of which the younger generation are with the way that things are, but the older generation, it's obviously it sits horribly with them. There's interesting intrigue kind of early on between two sisters, and you're kind of wondering immediately what's happening, and you're drawn in for the rest of the episode anyways to see what's going on there and what the backstory is. I think in general, wartime history, whether it's fiction or not, doesn't tend to really interest me a whole lot. So while I thought that the pilot was well made, I mean, I liked the characters, that there had been, thought gone into them. I don't know that I'd watch a lot more of it, but I think it was a good effort.
Sean?
Well, as has been discussed, it's an alternate history, or an alternate story after an alternate history. I like the world building. I'm kind of a sucker for stuff like that, because you go, oh, what's different, what's the same, what's interesting. Like when there was a TV on and watching there's a moment where they watch a game show. Maybe my favorite piece of writing in it is that there's a lady watching it, and she doesn't like the Nazis, like, because all the older generation remembers the war, from whatever way they remember it, but they do remember. Whereas the younger people don't know any different. So she's watching the game show and she's like, oh, damn Nazi. And they're like, well, just change the channel. I want to see if he wins. And I thought that, to be honest, I think that's the kind of rebellion that you would get, People would go, oh, fucking Nazis. Oh. And then they would just not do anything about it. Especially given the totalitarian regime and the punishments that we see doled out. So, yeah, sure, I'm ready. I'm ready to see, all right, there's no way they're going to be able to topple the regime. I mean, how could they possibly do that? And the idea that they have going forward, which there's a MacGuffin, there's an item, and they need to do a thing to get the thing where the thing might need to be. And then maybe that will, help out, if not solve everything. It could help inspire a revolution of some kind. But there was a bit too much people going places and not enough people being in places and doing things. Now that's a pilot problem, I think, as opposed to anything else. I thought it was handled well. They've got some handsome people, some attractive people in it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's anything super special about it beyond its premise. Like, as a TV show, I couldn't tell you much about the characters where I would go, like, the main characters, sure. I get it. They're supposed to be normal people in an unusual, extraordinary situation. And usually I buy into that. I'd rather they be specific, normal people. Whereas all of the side characters that are in it for a scene, like the lady watching the telly, or a guy who, a cop, or a marshal or whatever, who pulls a guy over to check his papers, I preferred them. I thought that we were able to get a lot about their character very simply, through action, as opposed to being through, I don't know, talking about things, either in the past or what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, more character through action and less through telling me things.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark.
I liked it as well. I think the guys have probably pretty well covered this review. I really liked the setting. I liked the possibilities they're setting up for the overarching story of the season, which is going to be about possibly setting the world to rights. I think that's the most interesting thing for me. I like the main character, and there's a pretty nice twist towards the end that I think made it worth the price of admission, so to speak. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I really like the premise, and I'd love to see a show done like this, but done better. I didn't think the script was great, and it annoyed me greatly at times. I do agree that.
What annoyed you, Steve?
Oh, okay. So you're talking about the generation gap there, right? Yeah. So at one stage, there's one of the girls, Trudy, which is one of the characters, or is it her sister? I can't remember.
No, Trudy is Aikido Lady's sister.
Aikido Lady's sister, right? Okay. Right. Aikido lady is doing Aikido. And she, and so she comes home to her parents and they're like, I don't know how you can drink that Jap tea and do that Jap karate. And, the character development is sort of then given to us and we're spoon-fed stuff. But it's like, remember that time my father said blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of in that way, but she said something like, especially after they killed your father.
Yeah.
You know, and then, it's a keto, Mom. Exercise is good for her. After the accident and all, you know, and you're just
true.
like, Jesus, you know.
And a little piece of Steve died inside.
Yeah. And, you know, that happened a couple of times. You know, there's another one where she's exchanging with her husband and he said, after the accident, you got me back on my feet. Yeah, nothing could keep you down, not even a bus, you know. It's just like, oh no. No, that's, I didn't like that. Also their priorities seemed a little bit backwards. You know, there's a scene where she's sort of looking at a newsreel of movies, and her husband comes in and she goes, look at the newsreel. Oh, by the way, Trudy's dead. Yeah, the Japanese murderer in the face in front of me earlier, you know. You know, I'd better get these tapes of such and such, you know, it's just like, no.
Spoiler.
It's fucking hardly a spoiler, it's in the trailer. So, no. You know, and then she goes to leave, and she's going to, you know, bring something somewhere, and she goes, oh, I better pop in and tell Mom and Dad that Trudy's dead. You know, but it's just like, oh yeah, I suppose I better pop in. It's just like, no.
Wait.
No.
Trudy dies?
Yeah. Seriously. That scared looking girl being chased. Yeah. So anyway, I did like like I said, I like the premise. The script drove me bananas, but I have to say the hook was great. And I'd nearly give it a chance and watch another one, you know.
Do you think the script issues might be down to kind of, teething problems for a pilot? Do you think that might get ironed out?
Yeah, it could well be, you know. But, you know, in a pilot, you know, if a pilot to me is sort of like you're not only trying to get the audience interested and stuff, but it has to be like almost your best episode, you know, your best work, you know.
Yeah, and I know that's hard to do because the characters are so new, but
exactly.
I've recently seen some really good pilots where the characters stay in the pilot, who they are throughout the season and throughout the show, and that pilot episode becomes a really good grounding for pulling you in.
This is true, yeah.
So,
yeah,
I mean, we know it can be done, so it's not always a great excuse to say, oh, it's a pilot, you know, it'll get better.
Yeah. And also, I don't think the pilot has to have as much crammed into it. Case being like Game of Thrones. No one likes episode 1. It's always episode 2, then you're in, you know. No one likes episode 1, you know. So, Sean.
I actually read an article during the week about the path of a TV show from idea to actually getting on TV, and maybe even staying there. Obviously, it's slightly different with an Amazon pilot.
Yeah.
But one of the phrases that I picked out of it from an industry professional, because they interviewed a bunch of people, and I wish I remembered the name now. But what they said was, I kind of think of it as the first 6 episodes being for the studio and the network, which is 2 different specific groups who have money invested in some way in the property, who have most control over, in fact, the pilot. Because at that point, they want to make sure people will watch it. They don't need it to be good. They want to make sure people will watch it so they can get 50 episodes, and then it's syndicated, and then they make their money back. So I do think the pilots are difficult, and they're all of those things. But here's what you need to do. Pick the right spot to start your story. Pick the right parts of your story to tell. Take notes if you can, or have to, or want to, but don't give us a number of expository scenes interspersed with people traveling and minor difficulties with traveling. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if I had to give you a blow-by-blow of what happened, most of it would be some shit happened. But then, after the shit happened, they just kind of went to a place. Like, that was the plot of episode 1. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I think that especially the second half of the pilot wasn't very good. I'm not going to watch this show. It sounds like it might have been a good book. Maybe it could have stayed a good book.
Yeah. So, filler from you.
Filler from me.
Jonah.
Yeah, I think this will be a filler for me as well. I could see people who like this genre material sticking around for more, but wartime things aren't my thing. And I just, with everything that's on TV and my obsession with Homeland, I have other things to watch. Yeah. So filler for me.
I think to my detriment, I'm a bit of an optimist, and I think I'm going to watch another one of the. You know, I'm really on the fence. So I think it's just going to sneak a thriller, despite how much I gave out about the script. I'm just hoping that there's more meat behind it than we've seen, you know. So, I'm going to give it a thriller because I'm interested. I'm hooked, you know. So, Mark.
Yeah, it's a thriller from me, Steve. I share your optimism.
Yeah. Okay.
When do we find out if this gets greenlit?
It'll probably be on the news in a podcast that everybody listens to.
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, you've pointed out its weaknesses, but I thought it had enough goodness to get my interest. So fingers crossed it'll get the green light, and if it does, I'll definitely be watching it.
Right. So, last of our movies is American Sniper.
American Sniper is based on the true story of Chris Kyle, who became America's deadliest sniper. It's about him joining the military and then trying to manage his home life while being in Iraq and, shooting people.
I want someone who liked it first. Who liked it? Mark.
Steve, I like the hell out of this.
Okay.
Now, unlike many of the rest of you, I've been in quite
Iraq.
a lot of action.
I would be like, I've been a sniper in Iraq.
I've been in quite a lot of action in the Middle East where American lives have been riding on my abilities with the PS3 and PS4 controller. So I feel like I empathize with a lot of the life and death decisions that Chris Kyle has to make on the field of battle. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. The very first engagement that he's in had me completely hooked on his character. I wasn't overjoyed with the character establishment in the opening scenes, but I still was interested to see how he got on. And once they hit basic training, it started to become really, really enjoyable, and it didn't really let me go. You might remember when we watched The Unit, and there's a lot of parallels to The Unit in this movie, because people like me and Mike want to see these soldiers do things that seem to be impossible or at least improbable, but these guys can do it. And similarly, this is what Chris does. But you also have to have some kind of angst in his family life. So there's something for people who are interested in that kind of thing to get their teeth into. And they did it in The Unit, at times to his detriment. They did it in this, but I think in the opposite fashion, it served as a really brilliant backdrop to show how someone who's having trouble with adjusting fared when returning to civilian life, however briefly. So I thought it was really, really good. I thought the action was excellent. They created tension really, really well and held it for just the right amount of time. And they're doing that right when the character on screen is relaxing and so are you, then they've nailed it. But right up until that moment, it was really, really tense. I thought they did that very well. I thought they handled the ending very well. We're not going to give it away, obviously, although it's probably fairly common knowledge in the States about the story.
Yeah,
it's probably worth not mentioning it. I didn't know before I watched the film.
Really?
No, I didn't. So
of course, yeah.
I think that's the right way. That's the right way to watch the film.
I forgot you don't watch the news.
No, never. I try and stay inside my current affairs bubble.
Mike, did you see this?
I did.
Right.
Come on, Mike.
This should be the kind of movie that I'm all over, loving.
Oh, Mike.
But I have some real problems with it. Number one, Mark mentioned The Unit, where they balance the family life and the action life. I thought they got the balance all wrong in this. There was.
Did you think there was too much shooting, Mike?
I'm sorry to say it, but I did think there was too much shooting. Like, there was nothing about, the kids getting in trouble at school, maybe having a bully issue that dad or one of his friends could come and sort out. There was no cake sales or, indiscretions on the wife's part. They just lost that whole Unit balance. The Unit also had a better theme tune and more engaging characters. My second big problem was he seemed to go through the movie without a spotter. Now, I tend to watch every damn thing about, sniper training, documentaries, blah, 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 that shows up on the History Channel all the time. And he seems to go through the movie with a guy to watch his back, but no actual sniper spotter. Now, I'd say Mark probably has some sad excuse to get that off the hook, which I'll let him get in on.
Well, it's very hard to talk when someone has just told people that you're about to give a sad excuse. But no, I thought that what they were trying to say there was he didn't need a spotter. And I also noticed that. I also didn't appreciate it, Mike. But in my head, I was going, fuck yeah, he doesn't need a spotter. Look at this guy. He spots and he shoots. He doesn't close one eye when he's shooting because he's fucking Chris Kyle. Hoorah!
Yeah, that's a pretty sad excuse, Mark. The third main problem that I had with this, and I'm not going to go into a whole litany for 20 minutes here, but and this is actually the most harsh criticism, because this is up for numerous Oscars and Best Actors and blah, blah, blah. At no time watching this movie did I ever forget that it was Bradley Cooper. I was looking at it saying, oh, there's Bradley Cooper threatening children. There's Bradley Cooper with a beard. There's Bradley Cooper sinking a beer with the boys. Whereas, like, by contrast, Steve Carell in Foxcatcher, at no point in that movie did I think, oh, that's Steve Carell being a bit of a dick. He totally captured my imagination, and I forgot who I was looking at.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
And I suppose I was probably holding it at a higher standard because it's Oscar nominated.
Sure.
Mike, I think nobody on this podcast, and maybe nobody in general, can better articulate the opposite of how I feel about movies than you.
Can I jump in
Thank
before
you,
you go, Sean? You've got a whole diatribe there, I'm sure. Mike, what did you think about the various changes in his physique throughout the film?
I did notice that. I thought that was interesting. But at no point did it ever convince me that it wasn't Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's you're allowed to have an opinion as much as I am, I guess. But he packed on a lot of beef. I was quite impressed with it. Mm-hmm. When he went to boot camp onward, he was just getting thicker and thicker around the back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they were filming in the media, there was a lot of coverage about the weight that he was putting on for the role. It seems impressive for people who like to follow up with guys beefing up stuff. Yeah. Way to go, Bradley.
Yeah, I did appreciate that he was doing deadlifts rather than arm curls.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fair play. Hardcore.
But I was also impressed with the amount of actual real-life deadlifts he probably would have had to do to pack on that meat.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
I just like to point it out when actors do lifting. I like it.
Sean.
Sorry.
It seemed to me that he completely withdrew inside of the part that he was playing, in stark opposition to Mike. He talks a completely different way. He moves in a different way as well. Like, I don't know what was going through his head or whatever, but he speaks in clipped, short sentences, which is partly the script, but also him reading it, And I thought that, I wasn't seeing Bradley Cooper in it, because Bradley Cooper has this particular kind of charisma, like whether it's on talk shows or in some of his movies where they let him off the leash a little bit. But in this, no, like he wasn't commanding a room with his handsomeness, as he is wont to do on the various talking shows. He was commanding a room simply because he was doing things, or because he was there. So I don't know. I felt that I'm in disagreement with you on that point. Clint Eastwood knows how to make a movie. So there are various really nice touches in this, and I think some detrimental things as well.
He certainly knows how to make a patriotic movie.
Yes, yeah. Although I think we'll get into that more later, but I think that this movie straddles the line a lot more than many various camps would like it to. So, for example, I was really worried in the opening scenes, right? There's a scene that shows a very small snippet of Chris Kyle's childhood, very tiny thing. And it was almost like an indoctrination. It was almost like a horror film. I was wondering if I was supposed to be getting ready to now watch a movie where the audience is aware of certain things, but the character is completely blind to it because of his upbringing. Now, that didn't really happen on screen, at least.
I thought it was almost like a justification that they were giving us.
No. The way that scene was acted, I went, holy shit, I'm afraid. And I think that this is perfectly balanced, because the people who are afraid and go, oh shit, this is happening all over America now,
this is
one type of audience. And I think that the people who are going, fucking yeah, is another type of audience.
This is where his dad is talking to him at the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after a bit of a row. And he said, there's 3 types of people. There's sheep, there's wolves, and there's sheepdogs. Isn't that it? Yeah.
Yeah, which is an incredibly specific black and white philosophy, which I don't think the movie was telling us this is what is true and this is what we think. I don't think that's what's happening. Because not only just from the way that it was shown, but also, Mike. Sorry,
just a point of order. Black and white is a binary system. There's 3 options in sheep, and sheepdog.
Oh, you pedantic prick.
Sorry.
Go on, Sean. You're mid-flow. Go on.
Rise above it, Sean. Rise above
it. Those scenes in particular contrasted later on with various scenes of him having trouble adjusting both to being in the military and also to being at home in the sequences that were there. I thought that the movie did try and have a more balanced view than you could have taken with this movie. I think there's a lot of different movies that you could have made out of the book. But there are just some filmically well done things here besides Bradley Cooper's efforts. One motif that I found quite interesting was, and this is straight from the book and real life, the Punisher symbol, which is a black and white image of a skull, which his group of people spray painted on all of their weapons and all over their stuff. After it's introduced with one of the characters reading a comic book, it is constant throughout. And that was just kind of one of those things where it was like, do you get it?
Yeah.
And not in a way that was beating me over the head, because it was visual, I think. But it was because I have a relationship with the Punisher and also comic books.
I think that happened a few times. I think that happened. We were spoon-fed quite a bit. This is
well,
how
with
you
the Punisher,
should be
I
thinking
think
about
we were
it.
spoon-fed because no one mentioned the Punisher at any point.
But we didn't need,
just-
it didn't need to have the comic book there. Like, that is his nickname, so. Like, it didn't add to it, I thought. But no, that's just one of the visual things that I thought was a bit cheap, nearly.
I don't think it was cheap. I thought it was literally just one of those things where the set dressing people and the props people and the costumes people probably read the book and the script and were like, yeah, cool, this is a motif. And then they did it. And not talking about it meant that people who know the Punisher at various levels can do the exact same thing I was talking about earlier, which is they can go, yeah, Punisher's great, love that. Or they can go, hold on a second. This is the real world. I'm not sure if the Punisher's ideas about the world should really be involved in a real life story. One thing I had a problem with was there's a character that is important in the first part of the movie who has a really interesting scene on an airway, a brief encounter between Chris Kyle, who somebody knows very well, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things you were talking about, Mike, was the family dynamic and things that could have been followed up on.
Yep.
I could have done with a little bit more of that, maybe from specific interactions with people, maybe with similar philosophies or not. But perhaps, and I don't know if this is true, perhaps the movie was completely aware of family dynamics, but instead was going, no, his family is these 6 guys that he shoots people with.
Yeah.
That's what he cares about, and that's what the movie's going to care about.
It's funny you should mention that scene, because I saw that and I thought, wow, I want to know more about that story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't tell us.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so he's home, he's got PTSD, he's a shitty father, he's a shitty husband. Poor Eltiana Miller doesn't get much chance to do anything but give out and nag.
Yeah.
She really doesn't, 4 times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not called American Sniper's Wife. Not to throw that out there, but they know they're not making a movie about that. So I don't know, how much can you go, hey, you didn't do what I wanted you to do? No, we weren't trying to. So I don't know.
Did you think there was a lack of tension in this, especially surrounding scenes where he's looking at people at the end of his scope?
The tension for me was not in him shooting people, because in my head I was just like, he's fucking great at shooting.
Yeah,
people.
that's what you're talking about. What is it? A claim?
But there was tension in other places.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, he's going to shoot people, so if it's at the end of the scope, he's going to get them pretty much. Yeah.
It wasn't about whether or not he could hit people. It was about should he take the shot.
True.
I think it's your turn, Steve. It sounds like you have something to say about tension.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of scenes like that in particular, where I know there was a should he or shouldn't he, but I was just like, hurry up, I just wanted to feel like, oh my God, will he or won't he? Because we're presented with the Iraqi people, which is another issue entirely I have in a minute to talk about. But they're presented as one-dimensional. They're the enemy, and that's that. Which is fine if you're a Marine and you got to go in there and do the job and just do it and blah blah blah. You're doing it for your country, right? It doesn't matter who it is. You're following orders. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Someone else is going to justify it, not you, right? That's fine. But because of that, and because they sort of put you in that mindset, I was just like, I'm not really feeling it. It's not, if someone is carrying a weapon, they're a target. It doesn't matter what size they are, really, All they had to do is identify, and it was pretty obvious that it was what they were doing was identifying it. So, I didn't feel that tension there, right? I was sort of going to say that I could understand that Mike would love this because it's got a slight bit of a B-movie thing in it that it kind of tells you how you should be feeling. And look at it. Look at this. You should be doing, look, and respect it. This is what you should be feeling. There was they were showing how he was feeling a bit. He wanted to go and do something for his country. And there's a bit of controversy about this because they showed the 9/11 and Twin Towers happening. And then the next scene, or nearly the next scene, he's at the recruitment station, or he's in Iraq. And it's not that they're saying there's a link between them, but that's what people read into it. I didn't read into it. I just read that he wanted to do something for his country to protect his country. It just happened that his first deployment was Iraq.
Okay, I see what
you know what I mean? Yeah.
You think that they were blaming Iraq for...
They were. Yeah, well, no. I think a lot of people took it up like that. Because it was very close proximity, and I believe they did try and tie it, some of the politicians in themselves. George Bush in particular. Yes, Mark?
I completely glossed over that. Like I've met a bunch of American soldiers, and there is a decent proportion of them that did sign up because 9/11 happened.
Of course,
it's not that unusual a motivation.
Yeah.
So and then he was deployed in Iraq, and I went, well, sure, he could be deployed anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
And carried on, but obviously that's a big deal.
Yeah.
In the States, because they're sensitive to things like current affairs and politics, which I probably wouldn't be.
But and they're military in what it's doing.
Yeah, which obviously it probably behooves them to a degree. But saying that somebody signed up because 9/11 is perfectly reasonable and true to life in many cases, and in this case, I believe.
Yeah.
Get over it.
One other issue I had with it was just like I was saying, the B movie thing, just where you're shown who's the bad guy, and in particular, there's a sniper that's sort of meant to be his opposition, but he's dressed all in black. So he must be the really bad guy, right? So, but there was no sniper battle. He didn't have this thing. I mean, that's fine if you want to put in a movie. It makes might make a movie, but Enemy at the Gates did this whole thing an awful lot better. Now, all that criticism aside, I thought Bradley Cooper was excellent in it. And I also think their production team and the release team did an even better job because they timed it so well. When is best to release a patriotic movie when there's nothing else really in competition? January. Because all the Oscar ones will be out already. Yeah. And man, did they make money on this. Like first weekend, what was it, 100 million? Something like that? Nice. It could be 200 million.
If not the largest January opening of all time ever.
Exactly, yeah. What a good job. Absolutely brilliant move. And it not only will it get the patriotic going, it'll get those who are cynical and know the backstory between Chris Kyle and the controversies and so on, because it got a lot of airplay in American news. Yeah,
speaking of the controversies and such, it's probably worth talking about this as a movie that is billed and marketed as based on a true story. and the various ways in which it is manipulated or just made by Clint Eastwood to disagree with things or to agree with them. I think you might have wanted to talk about that, Steve, earlier on.
Yeah. Well, Clint is always known for being quite a patriotic kind of a guy. You can see him at Republican get-togethers, and you know, he's old school. He's quite rah America, you know. So I wouldn't expect anything different. Now he did, what was it, Iwo Jima? Those two movies, they were excellent.
Flags of Our Fathers and
was it Dreams of Iwo Jima or something? Lives of Iwo Jima?
No,
I can't remember. Yeah, Jeepers. Oh, anyway, it's gone. But it's not like he can't do a good movie. Like Gran Torino is fantastic as well. Again, it's another vet. It's a military linked kind of a thing. But
I was going to say, that kind of sounds like. I was reading a really interesting essay about the movie. Now, I didn't go see American Sniper, partially because I have no interest because of the morality of the film, I think.
Yeah.
And one of the essays I was reading on it that was really interesting, saying, you know, I think it's pretty indisputable that Clint Eastwood is a talented director. You know, he makes good movies.
Yeah.
So is it a possibility that, you know, he was making a film that was meant to be amoral in that he wasn't trying to give a judgment with what he was depicting.
No.
He was just saying, you know, this is what happened.
He wasn't trying to be political either.
But
it's hard not to
there's
be.
arguments against
I
suppose.
Yeah.
But what she was saying was, you know, maybe he was trying to depict one thing, but the movie that's been made obviously is being read in America in particular as highly patriotic, and people are holding up Chris Kyle as being, you know, this hero soldier. Whereas there seemed to be a lot of accounts of him saying things that seemed quite blatantly racist, and, you know, like he began to see his targets as kind of one-dimensional, you know, bad guys.
It's not just multiple accounts of it. In his book, he wrote a bunch of things that reveal his character as kind of a completely indoctrinated racist dude who wants and enjoys killing way too much.
Yeah.
Well, last summer, actually, Jesse Ventura was awarded $1.8 million for defamation due to it.
Really?
Yeah, because he'd said stuff in a SEALs bar, let's say, and knocked him out, whereas Jesse contended that wasn't the case, and it was settled in court. So Jesse got, quite a lot of flack for pursuing the suit, all right, and one of the part of it was that the defendants were saying that the proceeds of the book and so on were going to charities, where it turned out that it was something like 2%, or allegedly 2% was only making
Careful
it.
Now.
But they were.
We don't have a legal team.
but they were saying that they could only make donations of $100,000 to a particular charity without, I think, tax implications or something like that. So anyway, that was their defense. But anyway, it just seemed to be like lies upon lies upon lies, and that's the way it looked. But I think the defamation case sort of proved that there was lies involved. Or maybe very grossly exaggerated incidents, let's say.
I think, I don't know if you would call it a trend quite yet, but something that I've been seeing in recent years with especially kind of Oscar nominated films. So I think Mike is right. Once it gets to the Oscar level, you're kind of holding it to a different standard because it's supposed to be, you know, the creme of the creme. And, you know, looking at movies like this, where I think it's highly one-sided, and it's coming from a man who is, well, like, I haven't seen the movie. Like I said, I have to say that this is just what I've read about it, but it seems like it's anyways, that story of a man. You could say maybe the way it's being received by people, it's almost not rewriting history, but it's saying like, oh, what a hero he is, when maybe that's not the whole story. You have other movies like The Help, and is there a Hollywood trend now towards kind of rewriting or brushing over parts of history?
I wouldn't say it's a trend just now. I'd say that's standard, over the whole history of Hollywood.
That's true.
You know, John Wayne winning World War II single-handedly.
Well, yeah, I guess it is an industry based on fiction. So. Sean?
I mean, in this particular movie, one of the reasons why I think it's being held up this way is because the character we're shown by Bradley Cooper, we can empathize with a lot, and it's acted very well. He's haunted by his actions. And because there's a book written by the guy that he's playing, we can go to the book and go, oh, that's not what this guy is like at all. it's a completely different character that they have on screen to the one that is in the book, in most ways at least, while some of the events are similar. But what I guess my question is for you guys is, does a movie based on a true story, or should a movie based on a true story try and represent that true story?
Absolutely. And I think they said this is a true story rather than this is based on a true story at the start.
Well, we can even leave out the marketing of a movie that is based on a true story. I guess what I'm saying is, if a movie that is based on a true story should represent it.
Yes, I know what you're saying. Right.
Why?
I think so. And you know what? Especially when some people are still sort of knocking around. For example, in Foxcatcher. Right? We have, now granted, Mr. DuPont, is he no longer with us?
No, he's dead.
Yeah. And, of course, Mark Schultz was very, very upset with it, at least initially. But when these people are still alive, like, if you want to represent a story that is a true story, you go to them and you ask them, so when your mother said this, would she have said this? You know, is this how she would have said it? Or, you know, or else it's fabrication, you know, to a point, you know.
And do you think that just would have made a better movie in your eyes? Like, is that one of the reasons
that's
why
the
you
reason.
think
Yeah,
they should have?
totally. Well, I don't see why, or to further a plot point is still making it a better movie. If it's not something that would actually have happened, you know. Now, granted, you don't want it quite documentary style. You want a story to be told, you know, but.
Well, that's the important thing, because, life is messy. And unfortunately, what happens in life doesn't necessarily fit into a 3-act structure with a clearly defined inciting incident. You know?
In 120 minutes.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's true, yeah.
So decisions have to be made. You know, this may or may not have happened, but if we put it in, it's going to make the movie shit.
Yeah, but
and at the end of the day, we want a movie that's not shit.
But you don't want to completely misrepresent a character or a situation that happened, like the whole insinuation by a number of people that there may or may not have been relations between Mr. DuPont and Mark Schultz, whereas he was absolutely. What are you talking about? You know,
Yeah.
You know, the fact that it was even slightly implied, or you know, or it was interpreted that way, was very, very insulting to the poor guy and his character, and he felt his livelihood. You know, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there has to be a balance struck. You know, you want a decent movie at the end, but you know, try and stay somewhat close to the truth. Ish.
The way that I look at it from a writer's perspective, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Genuinely. So that's the way that I look at it, right? And then, having seen American Sniper and read up a bunch about it, I think that there is a better and more interesting movie that they could have made about the deadliest sniper in the American military ever, having to perhaps decide he liked killing, or the various psychological things that go into that, or maybe even a movie like the one I thought I was going to watch based on the first couple of scenes, about a guy who blithely and completely thinks he is doing the right thing all of the time.
Yeah.
And then to see the world react around him. Can you imagine the kind of scene that we could have got if we see Chris Kyle getting a hero's welcome? If for the previous 95 minutes, he's the guy who said, I don't shoot people with Korans, but I'd like to, as is in his book. You know what I mean?
Well, there was also the other issue which I had with this was the whole boasting of taking down looters after Hurricane Katrina. You know.
Yeah. I mean, good idea not to put the lies actual Chris Kyle told in the movie. Probably a good call.
Yeah, it's like, wow, these people are just, you know, starving. You know, you know. But John, they've taken out John. All he wanted was orange juice, man. Yeah. Yeah.
My last two things on just the movie exclusively itself, right?
Yeah.
There's a great sequence that is told with no dialogue, or not a sequence, there's a scene told with no dialogue that not only gives the Hurt Locker a run for its money. The Hurt Locker has a great scene in its ending with Jeremy Renner looking at cereal boxes and not knowing what the fuck to do with his life. But this movie has a number of scenes that not only give the Hurt Locker a run for their money, showing a vet trying to reacclimate to life at home, but I think it beats it out a lot. But there's one moment where there's a slow zoom in on Chris Kyle, on Bradley Cooper, where an event is taking place that is the kind of thing that could happen to him at any point that would affect his life, his wife's life, etc., incredibly, you know? And it's a slow zoom onto Bradley Cooper's face, but he's wearing sunglasses. And I can't figure out if that is incredible genius going, this character is not aware that that is exactly what's going through the mind of the audience and his wife right now. Or if it was, nah, Bradley, we don't know. Your eyes are very pretty. We don't want to distract anyone. And we don't want to make you decide what emotion to have right now. So just put on the sunglasses. Yeah. I don't know, but I was very intrigued and invested in those two particular scenes.
Sean, give us a mark.
A mark for this. Shit, I just talked myself up a bunch at the end.
Yep.
I think it's really well made. I don't think it's quite of the caliber of some of the other movies that we've looked at for Oscar season and will look at for Oscar season. So this is a weak 8 for me.
Okay. Mark.
I was surprised you went that high, Sean, but it's a great film. It's a 7 for me. I think it's well above average, and I have recommended to a lot of people to go and see it, and I think they should.
Mike.
Yeah, I should have been the target audience for this, and it just didn't lie right with me. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's not worthy to carry the piss bucket for something like Black Hawk Down or whatever, you know, as war movies go. So I'll give it, you know, it's not a bad movie. I'll give it a 6, but that's as high as I can go.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 6 as well. Yeah. For all those reasons I've said earlier. So next up, we'll have some previews and Come to a Bicycle near you. So the first one is Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Kimmy Schmidt?
Yeah.
It's not that much of a tongue twister.
Kimmy Schmidt. I was looking at Kenny Schmidt. Okay. Anyway, what do we think of this?
What are you?
It's just my own writing. Don't worry about it.
So this is a new trailer for a new TV show coming from Tina Fey, starring Ellie Kemper, who plays basically the same character in Bridesmaids and The American Office.
Yep.
The really kind of hilarious, naive person. But it looks funny. So you guys put a lot of like shoot 'em up on the watching list this week, so we needed something that was an antithesis to that.
Oh, you chose these.
What's the show about, Sean?
I thought Sean chose these. Oh, right.
Me.
Okay.
What's the show about, Shona?
So the show is about Ellie Kemper's character is the trailer opens with her and 4 others kind of wearing very matronly home-sewn gowns, and they're holding hands around a Christmas tree, and they're singing a song about apocalypse. Apocalypse. You happened because we were so stupid, and police break in and they come find them, and it turns out that they've been living in a shelter for the last like an underground like bomb shelter for 30 odd years or something, when they were part of a cult that thought that the apocalypse was coming, so they've been living underground while in fact the world above them continued on. So it's Kimmy Schmidt gets into the real world, and she has a lot to learn, but she is endearingly completely not cynical at all. She has a roommate who's played by the hilarious character that you might recognize from 30 Rock. He played DeFwan. Really great. I'm really happy to see him doing some other comedy. Did you watch that?
I'm slightly cynically interested in this.
Yeah,
but
it looks
I think
good.
it could be great, but it could bomb.
You hope
very
it's
easily.
not saccharine.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
I don't want it to come with a moral message that we all should love each other.
Because I love that, you know, apocalypse,
yeah.
You know,
See,
that whole thing.
I think the fact that it's coming from Tina Fey, I would have faith that it wouldn't get too sweet. That just when she's really naive and things look down, there'll be a good punchline. Like even when it shows,
I'm just not a big fan.
It shows Kimmy Schmidt walking through the street past a construction worker, and he's just like, "I wish I was in your pants. I wish I was your pants." And you know, most girls would scoff at that, and she's like, "I wish I was your yellow hat." So I'll be interested to see it for sure.
Knowing Tina Fey's work from 30 Rock, which is one of the better sitcoms that's ever been made, the fact that she can have recurring jokes work over the course of 8 seasons, and then to give her a Netflix show where people can watch that thing in a whole hunk, I'm hoping that she'll just go, fuck it, I can do anything. People are going to watch this in 2 days. So any small, tiny joke I put in, I can call back any way I want. I can be as subtle as I want with things. I can do whatever. I'm hoping she takes advantage of Netflix format and does an incredibly smart and funny show.
Mark,
I'm hoping, and I'm looking forward to it.
Mark and Mike, any comment?
This looks fucking terrible. There's not a fucking chance I'm watching this shit.
I'm with Mike.
I'm not surprised.
It's going to be on the list. Yeah. You guys should get ready.
Okay, so just to counteract that, next up is San Andreas, which is The Rock in a disaster movie of epic proportions, biblical proportions.
The Rock versus Planet Earth.
And
who's going to win?
Yeah.
My money's on The Rock.
If there is one thing the world needs, it's a disaster movie. If there's two, it's a disaster movie starring The Rock. So I've been looking forward to a good disaster movie for some time now. I think we've been a little bit starved of late. And when I realized that Dwayne Johnson was going to be leading it, my joy knew no bounds. So San Andreas is about the big one, a huge earthquake that strikes the west coast of the United States. And it leads to some kind of global Armageddon, because I'm pretty sure nobody could survive if California was damaged. But luckily The Rock is there.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that he's going to do everything just short of grabbing the two tectonic plates and pulling them together with his giant pecs to make sure that everyone gets out okay.
And that big gaping crevasse that opens up. I'm sure there's some family member stuck on the other side of it somewhere.
Yeah.
Jesus, could you imagine if The Rock wasn't there?
What would we do?
That's the really scary thing, Mike.
John.
He plays a rescue worker, and the thing that he was most excited about, I read in a Muscle and Fitness interview that he did, he drives and flies and everything.
Cool.
That's one of the things he's excited about. He's going to be in a helicopter. He's going to be on the boat. You're going to have The Rock in a car. You're going to have The Rock in a van. You're going to have The Rock in a bicycle. You're going to have The Rock in a moped and a motorbike cycle. Cool. It's going to be very exciting. I hope he does jumps with things.
I can't imagine him on a moped.
And can I just say quickly, the soundtrack to the trailer was brilliant, because they had somebody doing a really slow cover of ABBA's California Dreaming.
Oh, yeah.
And
that
all
was
they
cool,
say
actually,
is like the California Dreaming. You're like, ooh, it's slow and kind of on a minor key. This is going to be a disaster about California. You get the music, immediately you know what it's about. Like, I knew it was a disaster in California before anything else happened. What a good usage of music in a trailer.
What is it about Americans?
It being called San Andreas helps as well.
Well, there's that.
What is it about Americans? They seem to love blowing their own shit up in their movies. How many times has New York been leveled?
That's true, actually. Okay, and the last one we saw is the newly released Fantastic Four. Now, there's only one man we can ask about this. John.
So people have been worried about the Fantastic Four movie coming from 20th Century Fox for a while.
I was really worried.
Miles Teller. I'm going to do this wrong. Miles Teller plays young Reed Richards, and then a bunch of other people, including Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm. This movie's going in for reshoots and stuff, so I think this trailer is in part a move to go, we promise there's a movie we've made. We promise, it's a real thing. So it shows a take on the Fantastic Four's origin, but they're holding back a lot on the special effects that will surely be, this film will surely be inculcated with, which I think is a clever move in the trailer. We barely see any of the forms of these people that they will take after they are affected. Not by cosmic rays, it appears. It looks like their origin will be a lot more on Earth. And it looks almost like a kind of a gritty, actual sci-fi movie, as opposed to we don't know the bad guy. Like, the trailer doesn't go, here's a bad guy, you gotta fight him, gotta fight the bad guy now.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting move as well. And their costumes don't look like costumes.
Yeah.
They're just wearing fucking science things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was intrigued, and I think that's what a trailer this early before the release should do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. I think it'll be on the list anyway. I don't think there's going to be much choice. No, it looks pretty
Lucky
good.
you, Mike. Another Marvel.
God damn it.
Not Marvel.
I'm
superheroes.
gonna borrow an analogy from another podcast I heard many years ago, which I think is quite true. And this is just my opinion, but the Fantastic Four is to comics what hardcore fetish is to porn. It's like, you know, when you've tried all the regular sex stuff that's out there and it's just not working anymore, then you start like getting chains on and clamping things that weren't meant to be clamped. And the Fantastic Four is a bit like that. You know, so you have like all the good guys and bad guys fight, and they fight in New York, and they fight, and there's a Canadian team, and there's all kinds of superheroes. But maybe the Fantastic Four should go to the multiverse where nobody goes because it's so weird. So the Fantastic Four that we're being shown in this trailer looks a bit more like a regular superhero movie that I'm really interested in seeing. So I'm glad they pulled back from the fetish fringe of comic books for this show.
Okay. Very good. I think that's all we have for this week. Bit of a bumper issue. So from Mike, Mark, Steve, Shona, and Sean, stay classy.